One useful feature provided by Spring Boot is the ability to create random values within our configuration files. This can be helpful when building tests or creating values for things like cache busting or REST API keys. In this lesson, we'll take a look at this feature within Spring Boot. To get started, we're going to build out a new Spring Boot project using the Spring Starter Project dialog. Within the dialog, specify the name of the project as Spring-Boot. Be sure to select a Maven project and then specify your artifact ID as Spring-Boot. With those values in place, you can hit Next and then select the Web dependency and hit Finish. Spring Boot will build out our new project. Now, in order to demonstrate random configuration values, we're going to need to build a new class within the com.o'reilly.boot package. So open up the New dialog and then create a class, and we'll name this class MyMessage. Simply hit Finish and our new class will be generated. Within our MyMessage class, we will add the component annotation to the class declaration, and then we're going to create a new int, and we'll name the int message value, and then we'll generate accessors for the message value. So we have get and set methods for our new class, and then what we'll do is we're going to use the value annotation on the message value field to specify a expression that will provide the value for our field. And we're just going to use the property my.messageValue. So we'll go ahead and copy that, and then we'll import the value annotation. And now we're going to navigate to the application.properties file, and we are going to specify a value for that property within the application.properties file. So here's where the random feature comes in from Spring Boot. Within our expression, we can type random and then .int. And what this will do is it will use a random value property source object within the Spring Boot library, and that's going to provide us with a random integer. Now, in order to display that integer within our application, we need to do a few things. So I'm just going to make this a REST controller, and then I'm going to create a new method that returns a string, and we'll call it the welcome method. And then I'm going to make this an endpoint by adding the request mapping annotation. And then what we'll do is we will auto wire our my message bean, and then we can return the value from our welcome method. And I'm just going to say welcome, your lucky number is, just to make it a little bit fun. And then we can use the my message bean, and we'll invoke the get message value method. And if we import auto wired, we now have an application that's going to serve lucky numbers, and that lucky number is going to be randomly generated by Spring Boot when the application starts. Now everybody will have the same lucky number. So now let's go ahead and we will run our application. I'm just going to navigate to the Package Explorer, right-click on the project, go to Run As, and then Spring Boot Application. And that will launch our application, and we can visit the context root, and there we see our lucky number. Well, that's not a very good lucky number. Luckily for us, Spring Boot allows us to specify an upper limit, so we can say something like, give me all the lucky numbers from 0 to 9. And now if we restart our application, you'll notice that our number is going to be more reasonable. So we can hit our URL again, and there we get a number under 10. We can also specify a range. So let's say I say between 10 and 1500. And this is going to give me a number between 10 and 1499. You need to remember this max is actually exclusive. And I also want to talk about the syntax of this statement. So it's random.int, and then actually this parenthesis can be any character. So we could actually change these up to asterisks. And then you have to specify your lower value, your upper value, separated by a comma. Now be very careful. If you put a space in there, it's not going to work. So while they were very robust in allowing you to use any character, they were not so robust with not allowing you to use a space after the comma. So let's go ahead, restart our application, and we will now hit the URL once again. And this time we see that our lucky number is 325. So we can generate random ints, and we have a lot of control over those. We can also generate a long, and if we would like, we can also generate a string. Now the syntax for a string is random.value. So let's go to the myMessage class, and we'll switch up our int for a string just using find and replace. We can easily swap our field type, and I'll go ahead and save our class file. And now I can run the application one more time. And if we take a look, you'll now see that we get an alphanumeric value, and it looks a lot like a hash that was generated by Spring Boot randomly. So this would be good for something like an API key. For our last demonstration, I'd just like to show you this can be achieved with YAML as well. So if we go to our source main resources source folder, we can create a new file, and I'm going to name this file application.yml. That's the YAML file extension. And then we can specify my and then say message value. And then we can use the expression language to generate a random value within YAML. Now we'll need to, I'm just going to rename our application.properties file so our application no longer picks it up. And now we'll see if we run our application, it's going to rely upon the YAML configuration, and we will indeed get a new lucky alphanumeric number. So in this lesson, we saw how to use the random value property source object within our configuration files to generate random values. And this is a feature provided by Spring Boot that can be used to create test data or API keys within our configuration.